Greetings everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you at the Internet 2.0 conference. This is your host Sheikha FIFA. I request everyone to please be seated. We will start with the conference right now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome to the day 3 of Internet 2.0 conference. We will be having really exciting panel discussions, fireside chat, awards and recognition ceremony. So it will be truly exciting. So right now we will be starting up with the panel discussion. And the topic is IoT-Enabled Smart Infrastructure, Balancing Connectivity and Security. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome our moderator for this panel discussion, and it is Sean A. Cooper. Yes, the Director of Global Public Sector Sales Team, Sunrow Incorporated. Welcome, Mr. Sean. He is the moderator of this panel discussion, and I would also like to invite the panelists and the person whom I'm going to call is Swakit Jain, the founder of Sonko Technologies. Yes, all of you, a round of applause. Then we have Sankar Ganesh, the Technical Director of Youth Dev Holdings Software Services India Private Limited. So, ladies and gentlemen, it will be a very interesting panel discussion, and all of you enjoy. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, those of you who are here today. Hopefully we're going to have a great discussion. Don't scare you too much, but it'll be interesting, and we're not giving a sermon, so we hope to have some interaction here with some of the thoughts we have.
Thanks for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. So I think there was a slight miscommunication. I was planning to do the moderation. So I'll start by introducing myself, and then I'll pass it on to my fellow panelists to give a more thorough introduction of themselves. So I'm Swakit Jain. I have about 8-9 years of software development experience. I do it all basically. I'm known as a one-man tech department, like a full-stack developer, AWS certified solutions architect, and basically a problem solver. Now for the past 2 years with Sonko Technologies, I've been doing technology consulting where I'm helping various startups and mid-sized companies solve their technical challenges. And that's basically it. Sean, do you want to go next and tell us about yourself?
Sure. I am, as introduced, I run a sales organization globally for a cyber threat intelligence entity. I have about 15 years in cybersecurity in different realms, from endpoint detection, which has now become MDR, maybe you're familiar with that, as well as some of the directed research on what we might call offensive cyber in the intelligence community. Prior to that, I had a number of years in the telecommunications world, networking, back when we were analog, prior to becoming digital. So I have some of the unique experiences as we've integrated to our current technologies.
Thank you, Sean. Myself, Shankar Ganesh. Good morning, everyone. So I'm coming from the mobile application development background. I have been there for the last 15 years with mobile application. I started with WML, a wireless markup language for mobile. It's not a picture now. So slowly evolved to BlackBerry, and then to Symbian OS, and then to Android, and then to iPhone, all these things. So here we are here to discuss about the IoT stuff. I'm excited to share my inputs with Sean and Jane. So looking forward, excited to with you guys also.
Thank you, guys. So, okay, let's first start about a very random question. What is your favorite IoT device?
That's a loaded question for me, being a cyber guy. The only IoT device that I actually have connected in my house, as all of our latest devices that have internet connectivity, I have disconnected the internet from them. The only one that's actually active is my Google Home, which is in the kitchen, so just so we can have music. That's it. And the weather, we get the weather.
Can't we wish it would start cooking as well? I think that would be great. Shankar, what about you?
It's a similar thought actually. So I'm not very fond of IoT devices using in the day-to-day activities because of the latest thing. It's still evolving actually. So there are maturity needs to be brought in up there. So we'll talk about more of these things. So at the moment, I'll use mostly for setting up in the Google, like in the TVs, and then using Alexa, which is for not for the payments and stuff, for the songs and selections and stuff. So where we are using at the moment. So happy to use Alexa and these things for less sensitive data. That's what I'm trying to portray. Thank you.
Yeah, so you mentioned it's still evolving. So instead of going into the future, can we start with how it has evolved in the past, say, decade or so? Shankar, do you want to share your thoughts on that?
That's a good question actually, Jane. Thank you so much. We have been saying on day one and day two with regards to AI. AI has been started in 1950 or something like that. But this also started a long period of time. So when people trying to connect the computers through physical wires, they found networks, they talks about topology and all the things. So when the internet becomes the hub, right, all the things they try to do in the internet. So that comes into the picture of connecting all the physical devices through internet. That was the born of IoT, the Internet of Devices, right? So when it comes to the Internet of Devices, that's why Sean role is been playing very key role because of cybersecurity. If there is not in the internet, if the physical devices are connected through LAN, MAN, or WAN, or whatever it is, we can just like a bank. When you see the bank, right, there are lots of cops standing there to protect their bank and stuff, right? Similar kind of role this guy was playing actually. It is actually good for everyone in the accessing in the internet. So things is actually when they're placing in internet, there are lots of challenges and opportunities coming up. So which we need to discuss further. That's what I feel.
And Sean, do you want to share some thoughts on the same thing, like how it has evolved? What are your observations in the past decades?
Yes, as I said, I'm not really a fan though. I have a lot of experience from the OT environment prior to us moving to the IoT environment, in which, in my world, working in the public sector, you deal with a lot of these power plants and or the industrial control system network type places. So a lot of the evolution is around having to manage a lot of those areas disparately, distributed throughout regions and areas, and the simplicity of doing that, which also in turn, again from my perspective, is expanding your attack space from the threat. So it's what the evolution is, how we're going to continue to defend against all this ever-expanding threat space.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point about the threat space that has evolved with so many hundreds of potential IoT devices coming into play. So you also have a background in networking, right? So do you want to expand on that, like with these new nodes coming in, and how do we, like what are the challenges that companies are facing, and how do we go about potentially solving them? Of course, we are not looking for a conclusion here, but yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You have all these different devices, and as you can imagine, just doing an inventory within your own personal home of all the different devices that have the capability of touching the internet. That's an additional space that someone can reach out and touch you. So again, in my world, in the public sector, imagine that from your national energy company, agency, or your national, the aviation scenario. So all of those different touch points on the internet are just available for anybody who's a malicious actor to try to shake up some things, if not for financial terms, just really to create some sort of chaos. So yeah, I'm trying not to make this a horror story, but yeah, this is my daily life and what we're trying to address and how we can help to protect people globally. But it's one of the things that we need to do is to develop some sort of technology that marries the operational technology network, the ICS environment, to the IT environment, which is a major sigh that any of those agencies or private entities look at and say, no, 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 we're not going to do that. But I don't want to talk too much about that. But yeah, it's a head count and having the ability of people to manage the different areas and then as one. But yeah.
Just to add on the point for Sean, I'm also 100% with him. So a few things like the key thing coming up to cyber criminals, right? Because it's why IoT is there on their plate. The reason is it's coming on internet and the sensors, right, generating a lot of data. For example, if in your flight journey, there are plenty of sensors generating a data, and those data, either the data are interested or they're trying to use the IoT device as a medium to gain access to the other network. And they need to collect the data from there. So that's why we are in a need to do something. So remember that whenever everything coming up with this kind of things, the maturity is start developing slow by slow. So when the desktop applications moved into internet through web development, so we started with the protocol HTTP, right? So there, when you do HTTP transactions, that time lots of attacks has been happened, and those attacks we learned security needs to be done. The protocol has formed, and then there comes up the hypertext transfer protocol with security stuff. Similarly, there are some things needs to become on security threats, especially our IoT devices. And the problem is these devices are diversified. We can't say that it's starting from, as he rightly explained, it's starting from a small wearable watch and a small chip to a nuclear plant kind of stuff. So it's difficult to establish a protocol at the moment, but people are thinking about that. It's in the pipeline. At one point of time, I'm pretty much sure there will be something like HTTPS, something like a similar kind of protocol will be there for every IoT device to communicate to the network. So that's why it's more rightly mentioned the OT platform to the other platform, right? That the protocol needs to be there. So once the protocol is established, then I'm sure every person will start using it without any doubts. 200% they use it. Because previously, in the year of 2000 or 2001, most people are not fond of using online banking. Right? I'm asking you a question. How many of you used online banking in 1998, 1999, 2000? Nobody is going to use that one, right? Because we don't know now why you are using it actually. Reason is there are HTTPS and it is given by a certified author, right? So CA is giving all the authority stuff. So you click on your browser and check on the CA and not the fake CA. You check on the company if they all the things is there. Even the mobile apps, right? You can go and check on your device, and then the device, the CA certified is there for the apps also. When apps available in the platform, coming from the app platform, so the app will be publishing in Google Play and stuff. We're trying to use some other things. They're verifying it on all the things. They want to ensure they're giving the right things to their customer. Similar kind of thing definitely brought to the picture. That's what he's trying to coming up with marrying the OTT and other platform.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And as technology is evolving, we are also getting better at security and deploying and delivering secure applications. So there are a few things you touched on there that I would like to elaborate on. So when I talk about IoT, I feel there are two major concerns that I have. One being digital privacy and the other being malicious intent. So we touched a little bit on both of them, but we were going to elaborate on how do we maintain digital privacy in a world where almost everything is connected to the internet.
That's a challenge. And as we were sitting here, I just thought about the hospital systems. From a privacy perspective, the individuals, the patients, all their data, and every country has their level of privacy within policy to protect the individuals. But, and I know just last year in the US, President Biden, his administration had created a law that allowed for suit of certain manufacturers who might be the vector for an attack within the hospitals. Why that's important? Historically, those IoT devices inside of hospitals, and this is globally, do not allow you to put any sort of security on those devices or it will void the warranty. What that means is these devices that are on a stick, on wheels, they're hanging up on the walls, are all Wi-Fi, wide open inside the hospital. So just imagine that this has been going on. This is ongoing as we speak. So those type of things, it's It's what? Yeah. So yes. Again, trying not to be a horror story, but this is something that's going on that we all have to deal with across the world.
Shankar, would you like to add a bit on that, especially moving into like private homes, like you mentioned, you have an Alexa at home, like as an individual end consumer, do you have any thoughts on that?
Definitely, definitely. I have been into different domains. So when I was employed with Robert Bosch for generating the apps, particularly for the cars automotive domain. So I'm not sure how many people are here automotive domain. So that time itself, in the automotive domain, we know that there will be a combination of hybrid vehicle will be coming up in the picture, and they established an open source network. They nowadays call it as adaptive autosar. So where different people like Bosch, Vector, all the things they're forming, and then they're forming an alliance. They do all the similar kind of things to coming up with a combination of things, and how they do their softwares. They share their knowledge to bring the software, so like an open source platform, we will say in the software. So there's kind of things they coming and establishing it to give a good service in their cars. And similarly, in the Google, when they're trying to create an operating system, management system, it's an open source, right? So where we are collaborating in lots of things, and then it's coming up there. It's not like proprietary things, but this IoT at the moment, most of things are proprietary things. Okay. So for example, I told you, right, the watch and everything are diversified. So the proprietary stuff is also diversified. The privacy policy, they coming up according to their own device. It's like, for example, if Apple is giving their watch, right, the privacy policy is only for the watch. But what happens if the data is hacked, as you rightly said, in the hospital domain, they're tracking the fitness, and then that hospital domain data has been hacked by some other person, right? It's just like in your Facebook data, right? Similarly, it's not like Apple is giving the watch was 100% bulletproof, but what happens, the data goes to an X hospital, and from the X hospital, the data was corrupted. So that's why the privacy policy globally needs to be defined, and challenges is there is different demographic or manufacturing the IoT devices, and it's easy to incorporate those devices in any way, and that's why the things comes up. I'm pretty much sure that once people start looking on these things, right, everything will be done enough speed. Because when we do, same example, when we do mobile banking things, kind of things, the financial stuff, people say no, no, don't use on the payments on the things. But nowadays Google itself is saying use my GPay.
That's definitely true. So actually, one thing I've also observed, like you said, there are these big companies, like you mentioned the names of Google and Amazon. They are definitely leading the charge when it comes to end consumer IoT devices. And as a consumer, how do I go about choosing which one? Like, what are the concerns that I go about? There are so many service providers that out there, like we said, Google and Amazon. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question. It's a great question, and it's actually what do you call a typical scenario where, as a consumer, we must be very careful on these things, because the manufacturer side and the consumer side is totally different actually. Because if I'm a manufacturer of IFB, if I'm a manufacturer of, I'm not promoted for IFB, or I'm not promoted for other manufacturers. So I'm saying for an easy example to understand in a layman perspective. So if I was manufacturing something, I was the head of manufacturing unit, right? What I'll try to do is mainly to make my machine sellable. The first thing coming into my mind is my budget. So why Android device has been there, particularly in Asia? So the reason is it's cheap, accessible. That's why Google coming into the market, right? But Apple says that my target customer is not for the price. My target customer is for the quality, right? So when you choose that particular things, for example, if you choose a watch, smartwatch, wherever you're choosing it, you must see what are the privacy policies coming up there. But simply when we installing a software, we just go to the end and then we say tick 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 and then done install. Similarly, I'm not sure how many people bought the watches, smart watches, and then they trusting that okay this watch, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure they don't know about what are things they're collecting it and where they state the data stores. You said the one army doing all the Amazon certificate, AWS certificate, right? So those data, any point of time we thought that this data is stored on AWS, Google Cloud, or some other company doing software service SaaS, PaaS. Nobody aware of that things, right? We simply buy, consume it, and then once my data is hacked, just like in the Facebook, right? There's a comic when it comes up, my data is hacked. No, that's nothing on my data. But when it's coming to a nuclear plant, Okay, understand there are countries, there are cold wars happening across the countries to the globe, and we're not sure that what happened on thing. Right? For example, we never thought that there will be war between Russia and Ukraine. Right? We never thought of that line. They are nearby neighbors. Suddenly, a thing has happened, right? So with the data and things, we simple say data is a data is a data. But with the simple things, what happens? The country sensitive information is key challenging. That's why Sean will add more input on that line.
Lay that, yeah. So yeah, that's. I was thinking. So you're asking about how you consume or choose a specific provider. So understanding the current marketplace, all providers and all entities have had some sort of exploit happen already. They have to have had it. If they claim they have not had it, don't use them because they're lying or they don't know that it's happened. It's probably ongoing. But yeah, it's really ultimately in our world is understanding how quickly they were able to mitigate and to get back to normal. And that's something, it's a pain. It's sort of like, I don't know, if I'm old enough to have gotten my driver's license before I had to wear a seatbelt. So, yes, I am that old.
We could never tell.
That's not true. So having to do all those things that we talked about, having to do logins now, you have multi-factor authentication, and not just my password. I'm going to know all these passwords for all of these things, and then I've got multi-factor authentication. I'm going to send me a text or an email, or to my YouTube, or to my tablet for verify it's me. All of those things that are a pain, but understanding that that's how we're addressing the threat that they're getting. The bad guys are really good. Understand they are really good, and they live this. We don't live this. Well, in my world we do work, but these folks all over the world live this. So you have to pick somebody who's gotten knocked down, they got up quickly. So make a simplistic comment.
Yeah, just to add on, totally agree. And it's not only the attack is not only the guys, cyber guys only needs to do. It's from individual, just like we say, right? Every individual has responsibility. Every developer, it doesn't matter. You're developing on AWS, I'm developing on mobile platform, and they're developing on web platform, they're developing on desktop platform. It's not like that. So when we develop things, we must understand that the consumer, just rightly said, two-factor authentication, right? It's important. Similar kind of thing when we're trying to develop a feature, we must see that this feature, how it is bulletproof, at least a bulletproof, okay? Or a real-time kind of proof kind of things. Okay? And another thing is three things which everybody knows it, right? Even if it is down, what is the downtime recovery? What is the recovery time? Okay, the data, and then the data integrity is also there. And even if I lose my data, some data we lose, we don't care about the data. Some data are sensitive, right? They must give a security level of 1, security level of 2, security level of 3 to access the data. So when we're developing an applications, even when I personally develop applications, it's my database locally stored in the mobile, the inbuilt database. I use encryption algorithm, okay, and I use combination of things. For example, my SQL, I have 5 tables or 6 tables there. Some things like the contact information or the key information or sales information, because I'm coming from compliance background, and Walmart is actually using, in South Africa, they call it as Massmart. They're using my data as important data, and the compliance, if it is told, if it is told by other person, right, then it is a big problem for them. It's a big threat for them. So they simply download the app, and if you hack Sean's phone just like that through wireless network and download this app, and then you can decompile everything nowadays. Nowadays, whatever the front side is doing, the back side is actually giving another platform to crack it, right? So even when you decompile the app and then trying to get the database, you must ensure that you're not giving it easy. Tough for them. Make them to realize that these guys used RSA or a combination of something DSA or whatever it is. There must be not to crack easily. That's what I'm trying to say.
Actually, I would want you to elaborate a bit on that, because whenever I'm leading teams, there's always this odds between development time and having security or additional features and stuff like that. And developers would always push back, like, you want this security, you want multi-factor authentication, let's push the deadline by 2 months. So, what is your advice to developers how should they think about security first when they're developing, and how should they manage expectations and deadlines with the rest of the team? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
As the non-developer on this panel, and the security guy, I would say build it in up front. Don't make security an afterthought, which has historically been in every form factor that you can think of, even to the home that you live in. The level of security is very basic. A basic door lock on the knob, which every movie we've seen, hundreds of movies of this guy's picking the lock. It's nothing. So I would say build it in. Don't make it an afterthought. As a developer, I understand your goal is the user experience. It's got to be really good. It's got to be easy. It's got to be for you to come back. I want you to come back. But from the cyber side, I don't want to have to keep chasing after things that you just kind of left that open, just because it's a pain on the user.
I totally agree. I totally agree with him, because the thing is, when we are collecting a requirement from customer, the first intention coming in the mind is we need to deliver the project to the customer and make customer happy, get money, and then the app needs to be used by millions of people, just like Instagram, Facebook kind of thing, GP kind of thing. But we haven't thinking about security, which is I see in my last 15 years of time, there are no project managers or no architects particularly focusing on that topic. So I see nightly pointed out, we use Figma nowadays, but earlier we use sketches and all things to draw wireframes and stuff. So we'll quickly develop wireframes, prototype, and check with customer. This is how your people log in. This is how your people access data. This is how the bank transaction happen. This is how they add beneficiary. All the things they'll put forth, and then once the user interface has been done, then the app implementation starts, or the desktop application starts, or the website application starts. We never think about the security stuff. And I see most of the people in banking domain still they're using Java framework. Why? Because it is still security, Spring, and all things. That's why I never give my tech stack just like that. So understand the requirements of the people. For example, one of the lady yesterday asked me to do a small charity application for their thing, for the deaf child. So just to have found puzzle. That's the data sensitivity is not a big thing. It's in the book, right? So I'm going to develop that kind of puzzle for the kids to solve, to understand how the mechanism works, right? So that kind of things I'll use, like any PHP framework. I'll allow to use the things. But if some customer walks in, assume tomorrow he walks to me and approach me, or he walks to me and approach me for something, then I'll think my tech stack, what kind of things, and I'll see whether should I have to incorporate these things or that things. So with the tech stack is actually, it's not like you can blindly do the app in just on this thing like that. Not in the app, any product, even if it is a desktop application or a web application or a self-made kiosk application, whatever it is, you see, understand the customers, where are coming from. Based on the data sensitivity of your customer, you choose the tech stack. So it is very important.
I think I definitely agree with you, and choosing a tech stack is something we a lot of times take for granted. Or
sometimes it also, sorry for interrupting you, sometimes it's also challenging, right? The customer earlier it was very easy when we do software things, right? When we code something, they will ask nearby people, for example, living in Chennai, so they will say that, okay, they collect the codes from my company, and then same building, we are in IT park, right? So same competitors from another building next door, they will collect it. But nowadays, this is not the competitors of next building, the competitors of another country, where we're not sure how the customers, surprisingly, most of them comes to me and told me, you told 3 months of time to develop this, but they're telling me 2 months of time. I'll tell them that go and check my App Store apps and check my reviews, and then come back to me. So if you compromise to get customer in, you'll definitely get customer in for time and stuff. But once you customer in, the customer will not be happy in terms of long term. That's how we are struggling with maintaining the customer. The project maintenance is very, very difficult phase, because he rightly said security needs to be built in. If all things is compromised on one level, then you will not get customers repeatedly again and again. So that's the reason why I'm sustaining for the last 5 years. My company is doing all software developments. Why we are doing this thing is the compliance and stuff. We are going with ISO certified stuff. So ISO 9000, we went for quality. 27000, we went for security. and they 20,000 even for information things is there. So I'm proudly saying that we are ISO certified, and I'm looking for Six Sigma also. So we guys are working on that also. So I'm coming to my client and says that, no, if you look for this thing, look for this thing, just like a buffet kind of thing, where you guys having a nice lunch, you can take whatever it is. Similar kind of things we can put forth to the customer, but make customer to understand all the things so that you will have a long-term relationship. It's not like customer comes in, you deliver, and then you wait for another customer. Trust me, majority of time, the new customers you get it right, that's actually very low when you, retaining the old customer.
No, I definitely agree, and I think that's something I also do is not compromise on some of the basics. Like if a customer says, like I have such a basic idea, why don't you deliver it in a few weeks or a few months? I would be like, no. We first need to make sure your security is built in. There's a basic level of structure there. There's a basic level of foundation there that you can build on top of. So that's really important. And I think one other thing I really like that you mentioned is choosing the right frameworks and the right tools. And I always tell my teammates, like, we don't need to build authentication, we don't need to build authorization from scratch. Use the packages, use the people who are experts in this, who have spent years building this technology, like encryption. You can get a package and you can start way better than you would develop it on your own. So that's a really important point. Coming back to some of the big organizations, we see a lot of different operating standards that they are operating on. And one concern I think was reflected in this discussion as well is interoperability. And if I am coming in as a new service provider, like what are the challenges we are facing with the lack of standards or some kind of standards that there are? And how do you think companies are interoperating between them?
On the public sector side, I know that interoperability between the IT or the IT environment and the OT environment, the ICS environment, is that it's basically two different islands. You know, the operating systems are different, yet they are both multiple devices, multiple facilities, multiple locations, and it's the architecture is similar. A lot of the same types of people are managing these things, so they're duplicative in these organizations, and a lot of them are trying to, as we try to migrate them into one whole network, which, you know, both of those teams are saying no. Especially the ICS, which ultimately, or the OT, which is an infrastructure for the most part, as opposed to the IT, which is the PCs, the servers, the other things. But so the OT environment being infrastructure and being much more disastrous if failing, does not like to be exposed. As I mentioned earlier, you add some of those devices, you're expanding your attack space to the threat. So by merging those two networks, you're expanding that environment. I have a brief background within, I won't say what country, but with an aviation agency when they were looking at doing that. And this is the early days, we were looking at locking down some of those things. And the airspace network, which had all the data about all the planes that are in the air. Oh, that's a closed environment. You know, the CISO was, we're not worried about that. It's closed. I said, is that in one location? No, it's all over the country. So how are they connected? How are these offices connected where they're sharing information? Silence. The internet. So I said, it is exposed. So don't kid yourself. Yeah, I mean, so it was, this is a security executive for a national aviation agency. This is only a few years back, but this was the mentality. I said, hey, this is a real thing. This is this is something we all have to take seriously. So, and you could say the same thing for transportation, and the railways. We mentioned hospitals, so it's a challenge, ongoing challenge. And then the last thing I'll add is the flexibility, because as the developers create better, faster applications, tools, and they evolve, and there's dot release versions, what you had before breaks. So you've got to continue to expand on your security on that. So it's the reason why, if you're not familiar, why cybersecurity takes on healthcare terms, virus, and these are things, because it's the same thing. We can't really defend things that we haven't seen yet until it happens, and then we can grab it and test it, and then we know how to break it, just like with healthcare.
Good, very good thing. So from my side, I was mainly thinking on choosing a service provider perspective, right? So especially when we trying to set up the environment, the infrastructure is very important. And setting up environment and developing a software is actually, what do you call, software cost is mostly less than the infrastructure cost, right? Because you need an infrastructure and it's put a right industry, the aviation industry. So where the challenge is there to put all the sensors and all the stuff on things. So mostly as a security point of view, we're saying that when we're trying to choose a service provider, for example, the X service provider, Y service provider, think about their past history. What was their, how long they have been in the market, and what was the kind of attack they gone through in the previous years of things, and then are they trying to give to the customers a right value, just like we choose AWS as a Google Cloud, right, where we apply our software things, right? So we call it as what do you call? We apply everywhere. Even if we in the home we're trying to buy a TV, I'm pretty much sure everybody not just walk into the store and then buy a TV, right? No, you guys do lots of research in your mobile phones, and then even though you do research in mobile phone, you still go and put the salesperson under pressure to explain all the TVs, all the stuff. And once the salesperson explains for an hour of time, then only you're happy you choose the right one. And then somebody still calls to the phone, make calls to the friend, and they say, the sales guy was telling, I was looking for a TV of Sony, but this guy was telling me a TV of other brand was nice for this price, and it comes lots of things like talks to Google Cloud, all the things is giving free for 2 years subscription or something like that. You will still do these things, right? The same kind of thing, we call it as DOR. So decision, analysis, and resolution. So that, being a compliance guy, more in terms, I don't want to get bored all these things. Okay, so the DAR actually is a tool. It's an activity to put all the people. You invite the service provider, and then you do the interview technique. You understand all the service provider data, collect it, and then you do the DAR internally with your team. It's not like only top level management needs to participate. You can pull all the team guys also, because at the end of the day, the lower guys is going to install either physically or going to do development in softwares. So you can put these guys and then throw all the data collected from the service providers and then see which is the best service provider on this particular things. Because if somebody comes to me and talks to me to develop a mobile application for game, I say, I'm sorry, I don't have a cup of tea that one. Even though I'm doing mobile development, my cup of tea for 15 years is enterprise application development. So game is not my thing. So if I say game to this guy, he should not trust me because of seeing 15 years of experience like that. No, he must see, show me the game example, the portfolio, download the app and see how it works. Is it stuck? Is it how it works in 1 GB RAM, how it works in 2 GB RAM, how it works in 3 GB RAM, kind of things. He must see, he must do that, decision analysis, and then he can put forth to your team, I got a quote from this guy for X dollar, I got a quote from this guy, Y dollar, this guy is a dollar, what was the best thing? So that basic stuff which we are doing it right, which needs to be practiced across the things when we developing a product. It's a product is a combination of hardware and software. Predominantly what happens is every team, that's why he's saying OT and this IT or man need to manage, every team or actually things coming from that environment in Bosch, we are isolated because the reason is we mobile development different, and the guys who developing the airbrake and the guys who developing the data, they're doing the sensor, and then when we're trying to get the data from the OBD code, okay, so and then we show the driving pattern. So the sync between this team is literally very challenging. So when you work as a product, right? So if you choose a service provider, all the teams needs to be brought in the same room. Then you realize that this is how we need to choose service provider.
No, I think that's a really important point at whatever stage you are, whether you're a consumer, you're a service provider, or you are like a developer or a security expert. You always will have certain stakeholders, you'll always have certain providers, and we should definitely do all the analysis like we do as an end consumer and get the right results and right people in. So I would like to thank both my panelists, Sean and Shankar, for this wonderful discussion. I think it was really insightful and I really loved hearing your thoughts. I would like to now throw the dais to the audience if we have any questions or anything you would like to ask our esteemed panel members. Anyone? Yes, please.
Thank you for the interesting discussion on the issue of security for startups. Now, at startups, usually they start at a very low level of MVP and they just try to take up and to shorten the runway. So, what kind of security measures would you advise or would you recommend that startups should take? Is there a certain path, minimum, like the gentleman mentioned about ISO or Six Sigma? So is there something that is recommended for startups?
I would offer, especially for startups, any smaller entities, budget's always a concern, and which is really one of the things we talked about merging the two environments is why we have duplicate roles. We can just have one team. I would offer maybe a managed service provider who can provide all of those capabilities. Someone who's got street credibility, frankly. They're well known. They do all the things that you need. They can actually help grow your staff and help to train your staff as you grow. That they can be the training wheels, if you will, for your staff as you're growing. And then when you're self-sufficient enough, break that contract and you're doing it all on your own.
Just to add on my own experience, 5 years before I started my organization, so that point of time, I was actually thinking about what kind of security is required. Just like you starting from a clean slate, what kind of security I need to do in mobile application development to ensure my product is safe and secure. So this actually is a very important point, unique selling point, because mobile app developments people, there are a lot of competition for me, and coming from the background. We must see what are things we need to do. So in terms of security, as I said, for how do you do? I mean, if everything are now in cloud, right? So the data transfer between to and fro, we need to understand what kind of security mechanisms are already there. So he rightly said we don't need to invent the wheel again and again. We can use that existing things there. For example, some of the things we use that standard things available in open source solutions. And there are lots of things I used in a particular process of mobile development where I use this secure communication to and fro and store data in my local phone storage. So that's also encrypted. All the things we must list out what are the things we need to do in terms of technical development, in terms of compliance, what are things we have to do. And we also need to check with the customers, who is our customer, because my customers are keen to get ISO certification. So if I'm getting other certification, right, they're not I'm happy. And I was a PMI's recognized project manager professional, and PMI's opposite competitor was Prince from UK. So my target customers in US. So people knows it, right? So PMI standards, they knows all the PMI standards. If I say my pitching is US and I'm saying I'm Prince to a practitioner, so I'm Prince to certified programmer, that doesn't make sense. So you need to understand your target customer for marketing, and you need to understand your development and where and all you need to put your security stuff is there. The compliance stuff, it's not only on software, it's not only on operation, it's on everywhere. And it's definitely time consuming for startup, but you need to you don't need to compromise that one. That will put you in a unique selling point in future part of time. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Shankar and Sean. Do we have any other questions? I think we have time for one more.
I'd like to add to that if there are no
Yes, please.
questions. So I'll give you an example. I had learned of a small company that was basically a data warehouse for others. So they were taking on, instead of having to go, they had their AWS and their Azure environments that they were going to be sort of an intermediary and a lower cost option for smaller entities. They did not sign with any secure MSSPs or systems integrators. They did it on their own. It was basic gate, as we would call gating, meaning just a firewall. For any of you in the environment, you understand that people have been hurdling firewalls for over a decade now, pretty simply. This particular company was exploited, and it was a ransomware attack where they locked down all of those database accounts for their customers and gave a ransom note of $3 billion, or we will just hit destroy. They didn't come up with 3 million. Well, it was 3 million, not 3 billion, excuse me, 3 million. And they said no. They basically gave him the your number one salute, and that attacker hit delete, destroy. The company was gone. All their customer data that they were storing was also gone. So it's not something to live with, I guess.
And the problem is once you lose that the fame, right? Once you lose your face value, then very difficult to come back again. For example, Google Glass, right? So they lost it actually Google Glass. So if something is coming up from other thing, right, they'll definitely pick up. So if you lost on that particular area, people remember that one for a long period of time, and you just need to change your vision or think something like that to come up again.
Yeah, definitely. Once you lose credibility, it's very difficult to get it back. And as I think the conclusion is, security should be built in, and we should always think about it first and let the experts handle it. Maybe not take as a start of you're fighting so many battles already. Why make authentication and authorization one of them? I think you should definitely go for the service providers.
The funny part is, from a cyber perspective, any of you are familiar with the OSI model and the different stacks, we like to say that everybody has a layer 8. It's between the keyboard and the chair. You have people. People make mistakes, people make errors, not maliciously, and there are many, many attacks that have happened to companies that somebody made a mistake. So you know it's going to happen at some point. So.
Definitely true, because in 2008 when I joined my first organization, using pen drive inside the PC, inside the company PC was strictly prohibited. But pen drive has been taken over the packet, and the guy before last day, they wants to get their code so that they can use it offline and stuff like that. So they'll disconnect the Ethernet and then plug the pen drive. So you see, I slightly remember me that example. So that's what we do at that time. But nowadays everything is open source, and even if you put all things in GitHub, but make sure that you're not putting your proprietary code, something like that.
Definitely. Okay, Sean, Shankar, thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. It was really lovely hearing your thoughts. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. It was.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you so much for your patience. And we really appreciate your patience and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, and hopefully I won't give you any nightmares. So appreciate it. Thank you.